Hey there, it's been a while since I've been streaming on my YouTube channel, and so I thought I'd like to get on and talk to you guys about my favorite Roman emperor, because the last time I was on was so long ago. I've learned quite a bit about Rome and also about the history. Sorry, there's something, beam of light, right? Trying to get in my eyes. Okay, where was I? My favorite emperor. And so I'm going to tell you about my favorite emperor that, for one, did something extraordinary to the Temple Mount. He allowed Jewish people to come to where today the Dome of the Rock is, and they could come, they could lament, they could mourn, they could pray, and they could go to the stone where today the Alaska Mosque is. And during this time period, the Roman emperor also wanted the Jewish Shabbat to be honored by all of Rome. He says and I'm going to quote, this is from Eusebius, which is giving a history of a lot of different time periods, all about 300 years or more worth of history. And if you go to the part, and this is a very old copy that I have, so bear with me. I want to put this on the screen. This copy is almost 400 years old. I got this copy not too long ago because it's Eusebius. It was printed in the good old year of 1659, I think it was. Okay. Thank you guys for watching. And I want to read here. It says that Constantine ordered that the Romans should, and it says in Greek, it says, well, for one, about that they should respect the Lord's Day, but it says then, Hamoias de kai tastu sabatu timon, and also the days of the Sabbath to honor, that they should honor the days of the Sabbath. And this was an edict from the emperor, and I did give his name away. It was Emperor Constantine the Great. In the year 331, I believe it was, or 333, that was when we have a story. It's actually a traveler's guide, and I got the book in Latin and it's shipped. It's on the way, but for now I'm just going to read the quote on my phone. It says that it gives the story of a Christian pilgrim that's making pilgrimage to Jerusalem in the 330s during the time period of Emperor Constantine. And it says that when he gets to Jerusalem, he sees that there were two statues of Hadrian, the emperor, up on the Temple Mount. Not far from the statues appear stone to the Jews, to which the Jews come every year, and they anoint it, and they lament, and they groan. They tear their garments, and then they withdraw. And this is a testimony that was written. I'll give you the name of this so everybody could look it up if they want to. It's called Itinerarium Burgidolense, and it was written in 333 AD. And we have the original story written in Latin. And as a Roman historian myself, I purchased the original Latin. And so that's something that you could see the original Latin and you could read the original story. This is an eyewitness of somebody going to Jerusalem saying the Jews were permitted on the Temple Mount in 333 AD. The other thing is right here, when I'm reading in this book from Constantine, talking about Constantine, is in Eusebius. He's not only writing this in Greek, he's writing it in Greek. And I have this as a translation in Latin on a parallel column. I'm not sure. I'm going to just flip this camera up a little bit more so you can see how this is set up. Sorry, this is not as professional as I'd like to. Anyway, the Greek is on this side of the page and the Latin's on this side of the page. And so this is the original Greek where Eusebius wrote, and then the other side of the page is Latin. And as a classics major, I'm studying both Greek and Latin. As you see, I have all these Loeb Library editions right next to me. These are printed by Harvard University Press, and it's all the history of Rome, all the classics, all in the original. So if it has a red cover, it has Latin on one side and English on the other. If it has a green cover, it has Greek on one side. Oh, wow, I didn't even open this one before. Greek on one side, and it has English on the other. And so these kind of books are stuff that it takes a scholar to be able to type this up, put it on a printing press and print it. And most of these were composed about 100 years ago when Harvard did a great job. There was a Jewish person named James Loeb that donated a bunch of money to have these printed. And so again, I know a lot of people that dive way deep into conspiracy theories and try to say stuff to the effect of Constantine hated the Jews or Constantine was killing the Jews. Let me give you an update on what Constantine's laws really were. One, they're found in the Codex Theodosianus, and another one, the Codex Justinianus. And these were compiled, one during Theodosius II's reign in the 400, between 400 and I think it was 438 to be exact. The other one was done during the time period of Justinian. And so what's interesting about these edicts or this list of laws is that Justinian kidnapped the Pope. And so if you think that Justinian was on like buddy terms with the Pope and he was all in with the Holy Catholic Church, you're wrong. No, Justinian hated the Pope, at least to the extent that he kidnapped him. That Justinian was not friends with the Pope. The other guy, Theodosius, he had his own thing going on too. But anyways, what the laws, I'm trying to collect all these in the original Greek and Latin, but just to summarize what it is. So in 315, the enactment is that it says, we wish to make it known to the Jews and their elders and the patriarchs that if, after the enactment of this law, any one of them dares to attack with stones or some other manifestation of anger another who has fled their dangerous sect and attached himself to the worship of God, i.e. Christianity, he must speedily be given to the flames and burn altogether with all his accomplices. And so sometimes people will quote this out of context and they'll think that Constantine's going out of his way to kill the Jews. But that's actually absolutely wrong. If you read this law carefully, what he's saying is that if a Jew were to convert to Christianity, and in those days and age, he was giving the Jews a chance to convert to Christianity, where they could, for one, keep the Sabbath, worship on the Temple Mount, and they could do all the Jewish customs and all the Jewish things that Jews do. The only thing that would be additional is they would then accept Jesus as the Messiah, which today would be considered a Messianic Jew. If they were to do that, they had protection under Rome, that if any Orthodox Jew that did not believe in Jesus were to persecute that individual for converting, they themselves could be burned alive for it. And so this was protection that the Messianic Jews had against the Orthodox Jews. And then on top of that, they also had a law stating that the Orthodox Jews, so they weren't allowed to hurt these converts. And then also once somebody converted to Christianity, it was illegal for that convert to revert back to Judaism and deny Jesus. It was by the Roman Emperor Constantine that was considered illegal. So everything, in all due respect, was to promote Christianity to the Jews and to get them to be able to keep the Sabbath and their feasts and everything that they're doing, only do it in the church of God, where they believed in Jesus as the Redeemer for their sins. And so think about if you were the emperor and you were wanting the Jewish people to believe in Jesus, what would you do? And you're not trying to kill the Jewish people. So that's exactly what he did. He made Christianity as welcoming for the Jews as possible. He made it so that the Jews would want to become Christians and that they couldn't hold high positions in public offices without becoming a Christian. That was another thing on the list, that to get to those high positions in office, they would have to become a Christian. And so everything was on the plate that they would want to become a Christian. And if they did become a Christian, there's a such thing as a Jewish Christian. And this was how it was in this day and age, where the Jewish people that became Christians would continue to be Jews, and yet they would also be Christians. And so that's exactly what Constantine made way for in the history, in the legitimate history from the Greek and Latin sources. Now, I want to make one point, and that is that later on, Constantine's sons, there at least on some YouTube videos that I've seen, there's all these rumors about that they were fighting Jews and that burned down synagogues and all this kind of stuff. I looked in these primary sources of the 350s when Constantine's sons were alive, and I didn't see any of that battle. I also looked in my Roman history book to the section on Constantine's sons, and it never talks about them fighting any Jewish people. So, unless this is recorded in some other source, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm aware, from the history I have of, this is the Oxford textbook of Roman history. If you see, this was printed by Oxford University Press. And these are all printed by Harvard University Press. I do not see anywhere that it states that the Roman Empire was persecuting the Jews, killing the Jews just because they were Jews. You say those books must be very expensive. It depends on what you're talking about expensive. These are usually sold for about $28 a pop. So you can see I've been saving up and spending a lot of money on these books. I do value them. I think it's amazing. This right here is Procopius. The history of the wars from the 500s. Procopius was a secretary to Belisarius, was it? Yes, secretary of Belisarius in the early 500s. And so he wrote a bunch of histories. And one of my favorites, if I have it here, I kind of mixed all these up for the camera. One of my favorites is Procopius's Secret History, because he talks about, in the middle of the book, I just popped the book open and it talked about a homosexual. And apparently during his time, sodomy was completely banned. And they said sodomy was illegal. And so they said that if you were caught being a sodomite, you would have your privates removed and you'd be paraded in the streets publicly as a show that the Roman Empire will not tolerate sodomy. And so I thought that's a very interesting thing compared to today's world, where people think that you could be whatever you want to be, whatever gender. That back then that was completely seen as a sin. It was seen as an abomination to the Christian faith and the Jewish faith, and that was an outrage. And if you were doing those types of acts, you would actually be publicly humiliated. So some of these things I think would be important if we, as Americans or wherever we're at in the world, in Russia, I think you would definitely agree. But if we could understand the history and understand what the people did in the past, I think that would be a very, very good thing. You said different emperors, different laws, I guess. Well, what I was quoting was actually, it was a compilation of, if you could look up Theodosius Codex or Codex Theodosianus. Codex Theodosianus was actually a codex written during Emperor Theodosius in the 400s, and it was from Constantine up to Theodosius. And so all those rules, all the laws were compiled and were saved and preserved in Latin. And so I looked up that, there's very few copies that you can buy in Latin. You can buy something online, but just as long as I really don't want to get a copy that potentially could be messed with, I try to get as original as possible. That's why this copy right here was printed in the good old year 1658. But no, emperors did change rules, but at the same time, some of these rules, once they were Roman rules, they kind of stayed part of the empire. I'm not exactly sure what happened to the rule on Saturday, but just from looking throughout the history on without diving extremely deep into it, what I do see is that his edict of having Sunday as the Lord's Day, that we're going to honor the Sabbath. We're going to honor Sunday as the Lord's Day, as a day of rest, as well as the Sabbath. And he makes clear that these are two separate days. We're honoring Sunday and Saturday. And you can look this up yourself. Eusebius, The Life of Constantine, De Vita Constantii, or Vita Constantii, if you want to do classical Latin. It's Liber 4, so book 4, and then look at chapter 18, and then halfway through chapter 18. That's where you'll find it. And you can look up online, and there's an English version or whatever language you want. There's probably several other versions. But the thing is that the reason I got this in the original Greek and Latin is because the translation I was reading was a little bit messed up. because it was saying that he ordered that they would honor the day before the Sabbath. And I was thinking, day before the Sabbath, what in the world's going on there? But what it meant to translate it was that in Latin, okay, so in Greek, I'll start with the Greek original. It says tas tu sabbatu, tas being a feminine plural article, tas being the days, and then the word days are kind of understood from the context. So tas would be tas hemeras, the days, tu sabbatu, the days of the Sabbath. When it got translated into Latin, it uses the word pridii, which is the day before. So it says utque diem, and also the day qui est, which is pridii, which is before, and then it says sabbati, of the Sabbath, similiter honorerant, that they must honor. And so some of this confusion got translated when the Latin got translated into the English, and it's always better to go straight back to the original, because that's why classical historians are so important that we understand not only a translation but the original, because things can get botched up. Like I had one person trying to tell me that they thought that since it was the day before Saturday or the day before the Sabbath, that has to be Friday. And I'm thinking, no, that wouldn't make any sense, because in the context, if you read the whole thing, it's talking about Sunday being the Lord's Day in chapter 18 of book 4 of Constantine's life, of Eusebius's writing of Constantine's life. And after it says the day before, it's talking about the day before Sunday. And it says, which is of the Sabbath. So obviously when you're reading the Latin, that makes sense. And then in the Greek, it doesn't even have the word day before. It only says they're worshiping on the Lord's Day and honoring the Lord's Day, and then also likewise that they're honoring the Sabbath. But it's distinctly two separate days, and it's distinctly Constantine the emperor that is declaring that the Sabbath must be honored. And so I think this is important because there's a lot of confusion and chaos, especially on YouTube, and that's why it's kind of ironic that I wanted to stream on YouTube, because there's so many people trying to say crazy things, outlandish things, just making up things on the fly, basically spur of the moment. But that's why I'm giving you a source that anybody can look this up. Google search Eusebius, Life of Constantine, book 4, chapter 18. It's got a chapter, it's got a book, and it's got an author, and it dates to the same period of Constantine. Now, this other article that I was giving you is called Itinerarium. It's the journey. Let me say this again. It's called Itinerarium. So Itinerarium is of the journey, and then Burdigalensi. It's spelled Burdigalense, written in 333 CE, and this was the oldest documented record of a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, where he states very clearly that the Jews are allowed on the Temple Mount. And that rock, that's the dome of the rock today, where Adam, that the bones of Adam were placed, as far as people believe, that rock is mentioned that the Jews were able to go up to that rock. So I think it's important to realize that this Constantine was actually really, really good for the Jewish people, because he was allowing them to pray at the Kotel, allowing them to pray on the Temple Mount itself and weep and wail, and also that he was letting them publicly get Sabbath off. This goes back to the Maccabees. If you read in the book of Maccabees, chapter 8, which if you have a Bible, you could turn to the book of Maccabees, chapter 8. Let's see, book of Maccabees, first Maccabees, chapter 8, that is. It actually says that, it's the eulogy of Romans. They have an alliance with the Romans. And let me just see. So this is with Judas Maccabees and the Romans. It says, let's just say, okay, they went to Rome, a very long journey, and they entered the Senate chamber and spoke as follows. Now realize I'm reading the Bible, okay? Of course, this is a Catholic Bible, and I'm a Jewish Protestant that's reading a Catholic Bible. So go figure with that one. The Jewish people go to the Senate in Rome, and it said they spoke the following words. I'm reading in first Maccabees chapter 8, verse 20. Judas, who is also called Maccabees, and his brothers and the people of the Jews have sent us to you to establish an alliance and peace with you, so that we may enroll as your allies and friends. I want to pause right there. This is saying that Judas Maccabees, the hero of the Hanukkah story, is making friends with Rome. And you say, why? Why in the world would they make friends with Rome? Well, I have a little secret for you. If you've ever heard of Hannibal, the one that marched the elephants over the Alps, Hannibal was a Numidian, and he's the one that was he was able to march the elephants over the Alps, attack Rome in the center, and he was also friends with Antiochus the Great. This was around 170 BC, plus or minus a few years, 168 BC, sometime around then. Well, Antiochus the Great's son was Antiochus Epiphanes, and Antiochus Epiphanes was the one that that sacrificed the pig on the altar in the temple of Jerusalem. And so there was this alliance where Antiochus Epiphanes and Hannibal were both on the same team, okay? And so Rome was enemies with Antiochus the Great up in the Seleucid Empire and down south with the Numidians. And so because Judas Maccabees had a common enemy with Rome, Judas Maccabees was able to make friends with Rome. And this friendship actually lasts for years and years. I'll just finish out in verse 21. The proposal pleased them, and this is the copy of the letter that they wrote in reply on bronze tablets and sent to Jerusalem to remain with them as a memorial of peace and alliance. Chapter 8, verse 23. May all go well with the Romans and with the nation of the Jews at sea and on land forever, and may sword and enemy be far from them. If war comes first to Rome or to any of their allies in all their dominion, the nation of the Jews shall act as their allies wholeheartedly, as the occasion may indicate to them. To the enemy that makes war, they shall not give or supply grain, arms, money, or ships, just as Rome has decided, and they shall keep their obligations without receiving any return. In the same way, if war comes first to the nation of the Jews, and this is the amazing thing, it's going both directions, this friendship with Rome and Judas Maccabees. On the other hand, if it comes to the Jews, this war, the Romans shall willingly act as their allies as the occasion may indicate to them. And to their enemies, there shall not be given grain, arms, money, or ships, just as Rome has decided. And they shall keep these obligations and do so without deceit. Thus, on these terms, the Romans make a treaty with the Jewish people. If after these terms are in effect, both parties shall determine to add or delete anything, they shall do so at their discretion, and add and any addition or deletion that they may make shall be valid. Concerning the wrongs that King Demetrius is doing to them, we have written to them as follows. Why have you made your yoke heavy on our friends and allies, the Jews? So, commentary on this, that we're already calling Jews the friends and allies. If now they appeal again for help against you, we will defend their rights and fight you on sea and on land. So anyways, this is from the book of Maccabees, and the Jewish people are making friends with Rome, and this is dated to about 167 BC, 167 years before Christ. This was the beginning of Rome and Israel's friendship. Fast forward to Julius Caesar. I don't have my book. Oh, actually, I do got my Josephus in English, which could be necessary, even though I'd much rather read Josephus in Greek. But let's see if I can find this real quick. But there's also an alliance of Julius Caesar. If you read in the books of the Jews, I'm not sure if I can find this on the spot, but Julius Caesar, let's see. Julius Caesar makes a bunch of peace treaties. I'm just going to set this off the side because I can't find it. I'll do another video on that another time. Julius Caesar, he makes a bunch of letters, or he writes a bunch of letters to Jerusalem and to the Hasmonean kings, the descendants of Jonathan, the brother of Judas Maccabees. And Julius Caesar actually says you could keep the Sabbath, you could keep the feasts, you could be exempt from tax every 7 years, that we're going to have an alliance, we're going to have a friendship, and the Jews don't have to be part of the military. The whole thing was so that the Jewish people were not going to be breaking their Shabbat, their feasts, and their customs. And this was the friendship that Rome had with the Jewish people. You fast forward in the book of Josephus to King the Herod Agrippa II. Herod Agrippa I was good friends with Tiberius Caesar's son, Caligula. And he's the one that ends up getting in prison for a little bit in Rome, and then he ends up getting eaten by worms later. Josephus and the book of Acts both mention this first guy having a terrible death. But anyway, his son, who's also a descendant from these Hasmoneans, the son, he actually becomes the king. His name is Agrippa II. He's also mentioned in the book of Acts. And Agrippa II is the one that he stands up and tells the Jews that are trying to revolt. And I'll paraphrase what he says. You'll have to read it for yourself. Just read it in the Josephus. I forget which book it is. I wish I had all this ready, but I don't want to take the time right now. You can find it in Josephus. It's a speech by Herod Agrippa II. And he basically tells the Jews that if they want to keep the Sabbath and their feasts and the Torah, don't fight Rome. That they're going to be better off working things out in a diplomatic order. Don't fight Rome. But what happens is the people that attack, the people that end up causing the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, they're the ones that are murderers, rapists, pillagers, thieves, bandits, gangsters. They're all the crazy people. And there's this crazy riot that comes off. And it practically, it really ruins the Jewish state that was under the Maccabees and the Hasmonean dynasty for several hundred years. But the thing that I should bring out is that in James, the book of James, the epistle of James, the brother of Jesus, he talks about, are there any wars among you? And James says to the people, and I'm paraphrasing drastically, but read it in the book of James, that he's telling the people that they should not be fighting each other, that they need to get along in Christ. And James was the first bishop of the Christian church in Jerusalem. So he was right there in Jerusalem. He ended up getting martyred. That was pretty early on. And he got martyred by Jewish rabbis that were saying that they wanted him to deny that Jesus was the Christ. And according to Eusebius, this book right here that I got in front of me, according to Eusebius, he says that, he gives a little phrase of what he says. And then James, the brother of Jesus, says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And then basically they end up stoning him to death, and somebody bats him off with some type of a laundry tool for your clothes. Somebody bats him in the head and he dies. But James, the brother of Jesus, was saying, don't fight Rome. Be at peace with your brother. Peter also says, honor the king. Paul also has a lot to say about respecting authority and honoring the rulers and powers. And even Josephus himself, that was a Cohen, one of my shirt tail relatives on the Cohen side of the family, Josephus also ends up siding with Rome, which some Jews today will actually slight him for it. But Josephus, he knew the history, and he knew this friendship from Judas Maccabees, which, if you do the history, Judas Maccabees was a Cohen. The Cohens were the priests. They're the sons of Aaron. And so the Maccabee, Judas Maccabee, was a Cohen. His family, the Hasmoneans, they were all Cohenim. And so Josephus actually gives a genealogy that he was one of the descendants of the Hasmoneans. And I believe it was from Simon, Simon, the brother of Judas Maccabee. So there was Simon, there was Jonathan, there was Eliezer that got squished by an elephant, and so on. And so Josephus is a descendant of the Hasmoneans, and he's actually a cousin of King Herod Agrippa by Herod Agrippa being related to Jonathan Maccabees. He's related, or not, Jonathan the Hasmonean, and then he's related to Simon the Hasmonean. So this whole thing is a family business, and the descendants of the Hasmonean family, the descendants of the line of that Jonathan Maccabee started, they're the ones saying, side with Rome. Rome is our friend, not our enemy. And so, since I myself have been descended from the Cohen family, I really believe this is important to know that the Roman emperors were our friends. And you might say, oh, this is crazy. How could the Roman emperors be friends? Well, I forget where it's written in the Talmud, but it's somewhere in there that it says that Judah Hanasi, the one in 200 AD or around there that wrote the Talmud or compiled the oral traditions, that Judah Hanasi states that he was going to write a letter to Antonius Pius, or it could have been Marcus Aurelius, to Antonius the emperor, and he was going to say signed Judah Hanasi. And then he scratches it out and he says, no, signed, and he re-signs it Judah Ha-Avdi. I'm sorry, Avdika would be your servant. And he says that if Esau was greeted by his brother Jacob as Jacob, your servant, then I will greet the emperor as Judah, your servant. And Judah Hanasi, he was the first person after the revolt of the Bar Kokhba revolt in 135 that was actually able to get Jewish people back on the Temple Mount. And that was the start of something big. And so I think that it really does start with the Jewish rabbis and the Jewish people making friends and keeping our friendship with Rome. That is the beginning of peace. And it's something that Jewish people today, sometimes they forget the history, but I think knowing the history has been at least very helpful to me, and I hope it's helpful to others. I want to catch up on these comments. So you said tolerance, different religions, feel rebellion, you are talented, but the topic is pretty obscure. I'm sure people say it to you a lot. You know, I have to go. Okay, so somebody's just leaving. The topic's pretty obscure. It just depends on who you hang around. I thought it was interesting that some people never heard of anybody like the Emperor Constantine and everything. Other people I've seen like that they get the impression, and there's rumors going around that Emperor Constantine was like killing Jews, burning them at a stake, boiling them alive, and like making them all not keep the Sabbath. Well, I'm here to tell you that Emperor Constantine was a good emperor. He was allowing all of Rome to keep the Sabbath. He was allowing Christian Jewish people to not be persecuted by their Jewish counterparts. And he was allowing that Jewish people would pray on the Temple Mount. I think those things are very clear that that the history is saying that Eusebius was a great person, at least from a Messianic Jewish perspective. The other thing that he said is that there's a law enacted that Jewish men were not allowed to marry Roman women. And from a Jewish perspective, Jewish men aren't supposed to marry Roman women anyways. So that wouldn't matter anyways. It's like, go figure. Rabbi Hillel the Great already said that the Jewish man shouldn't be marrying a Greek woman or a pagan woman because then their kids wouldn't be considered Jewish. Whereas if a woman ends up marrying a pagan, at least her children are still considered Jewish. So that's something where the Emperor Constantine didn't enact anything that would have been anywhere near the level of persecution as to actually be hurting the Jewish people, like killing them or anything. He did make it so that it would be more advantageous if they wanted a certain public office, that they should become Christians. And so from the emperor's perspective, he was doing everything in his power to make Christianity look like a great thing for Jews, and that if a Jew were to convert to Christianity, he wouldn't have to stop keeping the Sabbath because the Sabbath is a public holiday. He wouldn't have to not do Hanukkah because every Hanukkah he could remember Judas Maccabees loved Rome. And so this was something that it all goes together, that the Jewish people can be Jewish and be friends with Rome, just like Judas Maccabees said. back when he made his first friendship with Rome, 2,167 or more like 2,200 years ago. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you all have a great day. Shalom, litraot. I don't know when I'll be doing another video again, but it'll probably be pretty soon, but it just depends on how it goes. And hopefully it'll be a little bit more prepared because I know this is a little bit all over the place, but I also know that I do got the reference. And with the reference that I did give, that's Eusebius, Life of Constantine, book 4, chapter 18. Look it up yourself. I think everybody that should watch this, that does watch this, should look it up. Try to investigate and try to make this a point that every time you hear something, look up, try to find the original sources. Don't just see it's an article. Don't just see, oh, this is some YouTube video. See, is there a Greek and Latin document that goes back to an original source, the date to that time period? So thank you very much, and I hope you have a great day. Shalom, litraot, and I'll see you all later.